Hello all you freedom-loving people. A plane and a helicopter collided at the Reagan Airport on a clear night, causing major injuries and fatalities. The Trump administration is ending anti-Semitism and revoking the protected status of Venezuelans. Okay, let's get into it. A passenger airplane that was carrying 64 people collided with an Army helicopter as it was landing at the Reagan National Airport near Washington, D.C. on Wednesday night, and it crashed into the Potomac River near the airport. The aircraft involved was an American Airlines regional jet coming from Wichita, Kansas. There were 60 passengers and 4 crew members on board. 3 people were on board the Army helicopter. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser confirmed earlier on Thursday that both were in the water. Officials have not yet provided the number of people killed in the crash, but it's feared that dozens have died. Although the temperature in Washington, D.C. is around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, the water temperature in the Potomac River may be as low as 35 degrees Fahrenheit, which is near freezing. According to the U.S. National Weather Service, sudden immersion in such cold water, known as cold shock, triggers immediate physiological responses such as uncontrollable gasping, shortness of breath, and hyperventilation. Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, where the flight originated, said that most, if not all, of the people on board may have been lost. Police say the bodies of at least 28 victims have already been recovered. Russian figure skating coach and former world champion Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Novov were on board the crash plane. They won the World Pairs Figure Skating Championship in 1994. They were living in the United States where they trained young skaters. On Thursday, the U.S. Figure Skating Association released a statement confirming that several skaters from the U.S. national figure skating team were unfortunately on board the crash flight. The athletes, coaches, and their families were returning home after the U.S. Figure Skating Championship and concurrent National Development Camp in Wichita, Kansas. Also, according to the Washington Post, the collision took place in one of the most sensitive and complex air corridors in the United States because of its proximity to the White House, U.S. Capitol, the Pentagon, and many other civilian and military facilities. Much of the action was classified for security reasons. President Trump announced, "I have been fully briefed on the terrible accident which took place at Reagan National Airport. May God bless their souls. Thank you for the incredible work being done by our first responders. I am monitoring the situation and will provide more details as they arise." The Pentagon said that it was launching an investigation into the collision between the airliner and the helicopter. A few minutes before the crash, air traffic controllers asked the arriving passenger jet, the CRJ, if it could land on the shorter runway 33 at Reagan National Airport. The pilot indicated it was possible. The flight tracking website shows that the aircraft was then maneuvered to the new runway. Less than 30 seconds before the crash, an air traffic controller asked the helicopter, the Pat-25, if it had seen the arriving aircraft. A few moments later, the controller radioed the helicopter again. Pat-25, go around the back of the CRJ. A few seconds later, the two aircraft collided. President Trump posted on Truth Social just after midnight on Wednesday regarding the deadly collision. He wrote, "The plane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking it if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good." Vice President J.D. Vance posted soon after the collision. He wrote, "Please say a prayer for everyone involved in the mid-air collision near Reagan Airport this evening. We're monitoring the situation, but for now, let's hope for the best." During a press conference today, President Trump briefed the White House about the deadly crash. He put the blame for the accident on the Biden administration's Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion DEI hiring practices. President Trump accused President Joe Biden of weakening the hiring standards for air traffic controllers. President Trump said that when he took office in 2016, he raised the standards for air traffic controllers to superior intelligence. But when Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. President Trump said that the Transportation Department, under Secretary Pete Buttigieg, prioritized hiring controllers with severe disabilities. However, President Trump later said that it might not have been the fault of air traffic controllers. He noted, "We don't know that necessarily. I'm saying there are things that you could question, like the height of the helicopter, the height of the plane being at the same level." Buttigieg issued a statement and criticized President Trump's comments about DEI. Buttigieg referenced his time in office and said, "We put safety first, drove down close calls, grew air traffic control, and had zero commercial airline crash fatalities out of millions of flights on our watch." During the briefing, a reporter asked President Trump how he came to the conclusion that DEI had something to do with the crash. Let's check out what President Trump had to say.
How you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash?
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. When you have 60 planes coming in during a short period of time, and they're all coming in different directions, and you're dealing with very high-level computer work and very complex computers. And one of the other things I will tell you is that the systems that were built, I was going to rebuild the entire system, and then we had an election that didn't turn out the way it should have. But they didn't build the systems properly. They spent a lot of money renovating a system, spending much more money than they would have spent if they bought a new system for air traffic controllers, meaning the computerized systems. There are certain companies that do a very good job. They didn't use those companies. They used companies that should not have been doing it. No, I think it's very important to understand that for some jobs, and not only this, but air traffic controllers, they have to be at the highest level of genius.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also addressed the collision. He said that the helicopter crew was taking part in a routine training exercise when the fatal crash occurred. At the White House press briefing, Hegseth identified the 3 deceased soldiers by their ranks. He listed them as a young captain along with a staff sergeant and a chief warrant officer. President Trump also confirmed that a list of all the 64 people from the passenger jet who lost their lives in the mid-air crash will be released soon. Meanwhile, he assured Americans that they needn't be afraid to fly. President Trump reiterated his confidence in aviation, saying, "Flying is very safe. We have the safest flying anywhere in the world, and we'll keep it that way." Based on one of the findings of a leaked internal preliminary Federal Aviation Administration safety report, allegedly, the air traffic control staffing at Ronald Reagan National Airport was not normal for the time of day and volume of traffic. Reportedly, the controllers were more overworked than usual. The same controller was talking to both the helicopter and the plane, whereas this would not usually be the case. The National Transportation Safety Board also announced that it plans to release its preliminary report of the crash within 30 days. Howard Lutnick, President Trump's nominee to lead the Commerce Department, told a Senate personnel hearing on Wednesday morning that DeepSeek uses U.S. AI models and chips from NVIDIA for its development. Lutnick will stop this behavior and he will impose tariffs to prevent it in the future. He said that the Chinese Communist Party only cares about itself and it tries to hurt the United States. The U.S. therefore needs to protect itself, to promote innovation, and to stop assisting the CCP. He said, open platforms, Meta's open platform, let DeepSeek rely on it. NVIDIA's chips, which they bought tons of and they found their ways around, drive their DeepSeek model. It's got to end. A spokesperson for Meta said that DeepSeek is proof that China will use open source to try and win the global AI race. Lutnick voiced doubts about what went into the R1 model. He doesn't believe that DeepSeek was done above board. If the CCP wants to compete with the United States, Lutnick said, if they are going to compete with us, let them compete, but stop using our tools to compete with us. Lutnick said that he plans to be very strong on his message if the Senate confirms him. He said, I'm thrilled to oversee BIS, Bureau of Industry and Security, and I'm thrilled to coordinate and empower BIS with tariffs that will improve the strength. When we say no, the answer's got to be no. Under former President Joe Biden, the U.S. Commerce Department did tighten export controls on key technologies such as quantum computing and semiconductor manufacturing, targeting competitors such as the Chinese Communist Party, but it appears that the Trump administration 2.0 will be even more stringent in this regard. President Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday cracking down on anti-Semitism. He is promising to deport non-citizen university students involved in pro-Palestinian protests. Under this executive order, the DOJ will take immediate action to prosecute terrorist threats, arson, vandalism, and violence against Jews in the United States and use all federal resources to combat what it calls a wave of anti-Semitism on campuses and in the streets after October 7, 2023. President Trump said in the fact sheet, "To all the resident aliens who joined in the pro-jihadist protests, we put you on notice. Come 2025, we will find you and we will deport you." Following Israel's military assault on Hamas, a months-long wave of pro-Palestinian protests swept across U.S. college campuses. At the same time, civil rights organizations recorded a surge in anti-Semitism, anti-Arabism, and Islamophobia. President Trump said, "I will also quickly cancel the student visas of all Hamas sympathizers on college campuses, which have been infested with radicalism like never before." Under the order, government agencies and department heads must submit a report to the White House within 60 days listing the criminal and civil enforcement tools available to combat anti-Semitism and recommending the deportation of resident aliens who violate U.S. law. The order says it shall be the policy of the United States to combat anti-Semitism vigorously, using all available appropriate legal tools to prosecute, remove, or otherwise hold to account the perpetrators of unlawful anti-Semitic harassment and violence. The Trump administration also revoked a Biden-era extension for temporary protected status, or TPS, for Venezuelans. Newly appointed DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said on Fox News that she rescinded decisions made by former Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas during the latter part of the Biden administration. Noem said before he left town, Mayorkas signed an order that said for 18 months they were going to extend this protection to people that are on temporary protected status, which meant that they were going to be able to stay here and violate our laws for another 18 months, but we stopped that. The Trump administration restored the TPS deadline to its original, April of 2025. The Biden administration had previously extended protections to more than 230,000 Salvadorans, 103,000 Ukrainians, and 1,900 Sudanese. These immigrants were already living in the United States, but Noem did not say whether the move would affect immigrants from those countries except Venezuela. Facebook's Meta will pay President Trump a $25 million settlement to resolve a lawsuit that was filed by President Trump over Meta's suspension of his account following the January 6 incident. The lawsuit has been ongoing for years. President Trump filed the lawsuit months after his first term ended, calling the action by Meta illegal, shameful censorship of the American people. The settlement agreement was filed on Wednesday in federal court in California, and President Trump signed the settlement agreement in the Oval Office on Wednesday. About $22 million of the settlement is expected to go to the Trump Presidential Library Fund. The remainder will be used to pay legal fees and other plaintiffs. Elon Musk is bringing his hardcore work ethic to Doge. Clearly, he is keeping up with the rapid-fire pace of President Trump's administration, and he's not just hanging around. He's making sure President Trump's big plans get done well, and this is probably while Elon Musk is sneaking a nap on someone's office chair between calls. So now that he's first to arrive and last to leave, Musk is telling multiple associates that he's been offered the Lincoln bedroom in the White House by the administration. But Musk claims that he has settled for the Doge office in the Eisenhower Executive Office building. This building is part of the White House compound. Reportedly, Musk was put there to create boundaries between himself and President Trump after White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles denied him an office in the West Wing. This is supposedly what Musk told allies at the Alfalfa Club. The Alfalfa Club is an exclusive Washington gathering that holds an annual black tie banquet at the Capitol Hilton. Musk is known for his hardcore work habits and for demanding a similar ethic from his employees. At the time when he bought Twitter, he sent a letter to staff that was titled "A Fork in the Road." This letter warned the staff that they needed to be extremely hardcore in order to survive in a competitive world. Musk offered employees a link to click if they wanted to be part of the new system. Anyone who did not click the link by 5 p.m. the next day was immediately handed 3 months severance pay and let go. And now that President Trump's letter to federal employees has been revealed, it shows the stark similarities between the letters, so Musk may have played a significant role in shaping the policy and sending the letter. Former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez was sentenced on Wednesday to 11 years in prison for accepting bribes, including gold bars, in exchange for favors for Egyptian and New Jersey businessmen. Federal District Court Judge Sidney Stein handed down the sentencing judgment in Manhattan Federal Court. Bob Menendez and his wife Nadine Menendez were charged with obstruction of justice in an 18-count indictment. Menendez was once a very powerful Democrat representing New Jersey as a U.S. Senator for 18 and a half years, and he was also chairman of a Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Judge Stein said, "I don't know what led you to this. Greed was certainly part of it, but that can't be it. I don't think that explains everything. Hubris was part of it. I don't know. You'll have to try to figure that out yourself over time." Menendez addressed the court in tears before the judge announced the sentencing verdict. He said the guilty verdict taught him a lesson. He asked the judge to be merciful to him, taking into account his decades of experience as a federal and local elected official. Menendez teared up as he spoke in court. He said, "Other than family, I have lost everything I ever cared about. For someone who spent his entire life in public service, every day I'm awake is a punishment." Following his brutal sentencing, Menendez stunned reporters as he blamed the induction as political persecution.
Welcome to the Southern District of New York, the Wild West of political prosecutions. President Trump is right. This process is political and it's corrupted to the core. I hope President Trump cleans up the cesspool and restores the integrity to the system.
Adam Fee, Menendez's attorney, argued in court that the former senator deserves credit for his decades in public service. Fee said, "For nearly 50 years, he's been a tireless servant of his community, his state, and his country. Despite his decades of service, he is known more widely as Gold Bar Bob." Prosecutors stated that Menendez pushed for military aid to Egypt, provided assistance to Qatar, and interfered with local authorities' prosecution of businessmen who he was allied with in exchange for bribes, including gold bars. He also attempted to tamper with 2 criminal investigations that were tied to the other 2 businessmen. Prosecutor Paul Monteleone told the court, "There aren't many crimes involving abuse of power on the scale of Menendez's." And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that some of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.